我现在目前已经来到了欧肯蒸馏厂。那欧肯蒸馏厂呢，它成立于1823年。当年的工程师索恩不仅建造了欧肯威士忌酒厂的外观，他更亲手打造了蒸馏器。但是在1941年的时候，不幸受到战火的重创，欧肯威士忌的仓库就遭受到摧毁，而大量的威士忌就流向克莱德河，也被迫酒厂全面在此关闭。期间呢，酒厂2度易主，一直到了1994年，由日本三得利集团正式入主欧肯酒厂，也创造了日本酒厂的一个职人精神，注入欧肯酒厂的文化，更创造出东西文化融合的新纪元。而2022年呢，欧肯酒厂推出了划时代的新产品3桶陈酿，由美国波本桶、西班牙奥勒岡雪莉桶以及PX 雪莉桶3桶熟成，从此创造了低地区雪莉的新时代。而今天呢，我们报名了酒厂的官方 tour 行程，会由我们的导览人员 Ben 带领着我们进去一探欧肯酒厂的奥妙。走吧，我们就一起进去欧肯酒厂吧。由 Ben 来为我们先介绍今天在欧肯酒厂它所使用的麦芽比例。
Here at Auchentoshan, like any other Scottish whisky, we use 3 ingredients and only ever. We use barley, we use water, and we use yeast. Okay, now our barley is a strain of barley called Diablo. We get it from lowland farms, as we are a lowland distillery, so we want our barley to be locally sourced. Now the water that we use, if you turn on the tap anywhere in the city of Glasgow, it is the same water source. It comes from a place called Loch Katrine, which is a highland loch that is simply pumped down into Glasgow. The next important stage, once we get our barley delivered to us, okay, we get what is called pre-malted barley, which is barley that has simply been soaked in hot water for about 2 weeks, okay? Now, that simply tricks the barley. It thinks that it's spring. So that barley starts to germinate and produce starch. An example of pre-malted barley. So this is pre-malted barley from us here at Auchentoshan.
Okay.
You can smell really more cereal. This one here, we don't do a smoky whiskey, peated whiskey, but this is from Bowmore. So you can smell the difference between the two.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, peaty.
Yeah, much more peaty.
Yes.
Yeah. And peat, for those of you who don't know, is a very thick mud in Scotland. This is an example of peat here. Not much smell to it nowadays, but very dense. That barley, that pre-malted barley, once it comes in, it is going to go into one of the malt bins, which are behind the door here. We have 4 malt bins of a capacity of 7 tons each. And then once we're ready, we're going to take that barley and we're going to drop it down the malt hopper, which will travel below our feet into something called a Porteous mill. Now in that mill, there are 2 big rollers. They are simply going to grind that barley down and they're going to break it into something we call grist.
Yeah.
Now grist, what this is made of, it is 70% seed of the barley, it is 20% shell of the barley, and it is 10% barley flour. In fact, if you do this, you'll see this little coating on your hands. This here is the starch. This is really what you need to actually make the whiskey. Okay, so that is what we're looking for. Now, once this grist is ready to go, we are going to take this grist and we are going to put it into our mash tun. Now, in the mash tun, we wash that grist 3 times, and it gets progressively hotter with each wash that we do. The first wash is going to be about 64 to 65 degrees Celsius, okay, and it comes in pre-mixed with that grist through this yard arm here. Okay, now this thing has a capacity of about 25,000 litres. Okay, this is where every single drop of our whiskey starts its life. Okay, it takes about 1 hour to fill it from top to bottom. It takes about half an hour then just to sit and soak, and then for the final half an hour, we turn these blades on here, which are going to churn that barley around. Okay, now all that's going to happen is all the starch in there, that is going to break down into sugar. That sugar mixes with the water and it creates something we call wort or sugar water, and that will seep down through the bottom of the mash tun, and that is what we're looking for from this part, this wort, this sugar water. Okay, that's what we want. Now, as I say, that takes about 2 hours for 1 wash. The second wash is about 72, 74 degrees, so a little bit hotter. And that one, you're not going to fill it all the way to the top, you're going to fill it about halfway. So it's going to be 12,500 litres, okay? Now that again is going to soak for half an hour, and then it's going to get churned for a further half an hour, okay? It's again about a 2 hour process. From there, you're going to take another batch of wort. Your total takings from this stage is 33,000 liters of sugar water. Okay. Now the third wash, we simply do that to sterilize everything that's in here. Okay. The stuff that's left in there, we would call that draff. Now normally that's what we would sell to farms as cattle feed in Scotland. I like to think it's why all of our cows have long hair and they're all quite happy all the time. But nowadays, the Scottish government want us to be eco-friendly, carbon neutral. So we take our draff and we turn it on to a biofuel company who then sell it on as biofuel. So it means we can be a bit more green and a bit more renewable in the whisky industry here today.
好，我们现在目前来到欧肯酒厂的发酵槽。那目前欧肯酒厂有4座发酵槽，你现在目前看到它是不是外面都包着这个保鲜膜，然后里面有放水？我觉得今天非常非常棒的一件事，因为他们现在正在保养。那在发酵槽里面，你在保养的时候一定要放水进去，以免这个木质会裂掉。所以今天这个刚好是一个可以跟大家介绍说，原来在木质发酵槽保养是这样的一个程序。OK, Ben, please.
Okay, so for the fermentation process here at Auchentoshan, we have 4 washback stills. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, these have a capacity of 38,000 litres each. Okay, so for each batch we do, for the 33,000 litres of wort, it is going to fill one of these. We never fill it completely to capacity, because if we do, yeast can be quite active. It causes a lot of bubbles, a lot of CO2. Sometimes these spill out over the top, so we never fill them completely to the capacity. The fermentation process itself, it lasts about 70 hours here at Auchentoshan. Now what that gives you after 70 hours is effectively a strong beer. It's an 8% beer. We call it wash. Now, in terms of the washbacks themselves, what they're made of is Oregon pine.
Oh, okay.
They're made from Oregon pine. They're 6 meters deep. Okay, so they're big, big things. And the reason we use Oregon pine and not local Scottish wood is pine, it gives you a lovely sweetness, Oregon pine, that local wood just doesn't do. So it is by far and away the best wood to use. Also, if you've ever been around a drive in Scotland, well, there's not many trees that tall around here. We're mostly treeless, so we have to get our wood from abroad. Okay, and they last, give or take, about 20 or 30 years. You can see the difference. This one here is our newest one. Still quite plain, still quite white wood. This one here is getting a lot older. You can start seeing the wear and tear that's starting to come through. Okay, now the yeast that we're adding is called Mori Pinnacle M. Okay, now Mori Pinnacle M, we're not adding a lot to this. We're only adding 4 or 5 kilograms. Okay, so it's not a lot of yeast that you need to get this process going. At the 70-hour mark, in terms of what that wash actually tastes like, I have tried it. The best way I can describe it is sticky toffee pudding and banana. Okay, so quite fruity, quite savory, quite sweet. Okay, but as I say, don't drink it if you're ever offered it. Okay, wait until we make it into the whiskey. Okay, once this is ready to go though, this 8% beer, we're going to take it on and we're going to distill it from this stage on.
那因为刚刚 Ben 有提到说他们用的酵母是比较传统的酵母，在这边的话我就比较好奇，就是到底那这个酵母会产生出什么样的风味呢？
So we use Mori Pinnacle M, which is a very different type of yeast from other distilleries. The reason we use that is because we distill our whiskey a little bit differently. Okay, so we triple distill at Auchentoshan, whereas most distilleries in Scotland only double distill. I mean, out of all 145 distilleries in Scotland, there's only 2, and one of them is us, that triple distill their whiskey. Because we're triple distilling, we can have a little bit of a quicker distillation process, but we also maybe need to get a little bit of a different type of fermentation. So that distiller's yeast, it has a bit what I would call a heavier fermentation. It leaves a lot more oils, a lot more waxes, a lot more sort of sugariness in the drink, in the wash. That Mori Pinnacle M, it's going to be a lot crisper, a lot more clear. There's going to be a little bit less sugar, it's going to be a little bit thinner as liquid goes, which is what we need. Because if you have too much sugars, too much denseness to this wash, you're not going to be able to distill it the right way with the triple distillation. So we use it a little bit differently due to that triple distillation. We want to distill slightly differently, so our wash is slightly different because of that.
OK， 我们现在来到了欧肯酒厂的蒸馏室。那欧肯酒厂著名的就是低地区的3次蒸馏。在我左手边的第一座蒸馏器有个小窗户的，它就是第1次蒸馏，然后再来第2次、第3次。 在我们的观众朋友对我们的这个频道一定非常非常了解，也非常非常专业，所以你一定看得懂哪一个是低度蒸馏，哪一个是烈酒蒸馏。然后现在呢，就由我们的 Ben 来为各位观众朋友来解说他们3次蒸馏的奥妙跟工艺。好 ，Ben, please.
Okay, so when it comes to how we distill our whiskey at Auchentoshan, we are very, very unique. Okay, there is only 2 other distilleries in Scotland, in fact, 1 other distillery, including us, that distill it this way, and that is triple distillation. Most of the time, we distill our whiskey twice, but for us, we want to go 1 extra time. Okay, now how the distillation works, we are going to take that 8% beer, that wash that we get through next door. Okay, that is going to travel through, and it is going to fill the wash still. So we take half for 17,500 litres. Okay, now all these stills they are big fancy kettles. Okay, that wash, it is boiled, the alcohol comes off as a gas, and the reason stills are this big pot shape is it encourages the gas to vortex around the still. Okay, that vortex means more contact with the copper, and that contact with the copper means less impurities like methanol and butane in your whiskey. So the more contact, the better. Now eventually that gas will travel all the way up. It will go along the yard arm at the back and into something called a condenser, which simply condenses that gas back into a liquid. And what you have coming out after 1 distillation is this stuff here. Okay? It's called low wines. Yes. So it's gone from 8% beer to 18% spirit. For me, quite fruity, but you can tell me what you think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, quite fruity. Okay?
Yeah, yes.
But the reason you wouldn't want to drink this one, as you can see, it might be hard for the camera to pick up, it's quite cloudy. There's all these impurities building up here. If you drink this, so those are going to come out in this thing here called a spirit safe. Okay, so they will travel into that little jug on the right hand side, and then they will go through pipes into something called a faints receiver, which is just below our feet. Okay, now that faints receiver, it simply holds the spirit until it's ready to go on to the next stage. That next stage would be the intermediate still. Okay, now in the intermediate still, the process is just repeating. It is not any different. So it's boiled, gas, vortex, and then liquid. And you've jumped up quite a bit to a 54% spirit that we call strong faints. This one, you could drink, but I'm not going to let you. No. But again, you can smell it. Still quite fruity, but cleaner. So, and you can also see in terms of the coloration from it, much clearer. Now, the 3rd and final distillation, if you were any other distillery, this is your whiskey. This is where you stop. Okay, but for Auchentoshan, we're going 1 more time in our spirit still. Okay, and the spirit still, it gives you our new make spirit at 81% alcohol.
Oh, very high.
Very high. In fact, in the entirety of Scotland, this is the strongest new make spirit. No other distillery in Scotland makes a spirit this strong. In fact, this is so strong, we can't put it into the casks at this strength. We water it down to about 63.5%, unless we're just going to lose too much to the angels, is what we would say. Now, you expect this to kind of burn, the 81. Very easy.
Yeah, very easy, fruity.
Yeah, very fruity, very easy. Much to my shame, I have actually drank this. It does need a little bit of water, but this is actually quite pleasant, even without being aged in the cask. So that gives you an idea of the quality of spirit that we're producing here.
好，我们现在目前在欧肯的这个熟成仓库就是 warehouse。那这个导览行程我觉得非常非常的专业哈。你刚刚看从我们这个糖化、发酵到一直蒸馏，一直到仓库，它其实都有非常详尽针对威士忌的流程去做介绍。那现在呢，我们就请我们 Ben， 然后为我们介绍 Auchentoshan 现在目前所使用的橡木桶种类。OK, Ben, please.
Okay, so this is maturation warehouse number 3. Okay, we have 5 on site here at Auchentoshan. Now this 3rd warehouse is what we call dunnage. So when we're taking you through later on, you'll see the casks are only 3 high. And the floor is always gravel or soil. Okay, this is the very traditional way of storing whiskey in this country. Okay, now maturation, how it actually works is once we've taken that lovely new make spirit, we've watered it down to 63.5%. We'll fill the casks, and what happens to the casks is over time they breathe. Okay, so effectively in the summer gets a little bit hotter, you know, even in Scotland, okay? And then the wood expands, the spirit soaks into the wood itself, and then in the winter, the opposite happens. It gets colder, contracts, and it squirts the spirit back in. So it's constantly traveling in and out and in and out of the wood, okay? Now, as that's happening, it is picking up all the smells and flavors from that cask, because whiskey takes its smell and its flavors and its colors from what was in the cask before. We're not interested a lot of the time in what we call virgin oak or fresh wood. We want casks that have been used for other things, because that's where we get all of our different flavors. Behind you here is an example of some of the casks that we use here at Auchentoshan. So we use a lot of different sherry casks. Oloroso sherry, Pedro Jimenez, sometimes also Fino sherry. And these are the ones that give you your very fruity whiskies. I always call them Christmas pudding in a cup. Okay, sultanas, raisins, red fruits, lovely dark reds and amber in colour. It depends on what type of sherry you use again. Pedro Jimenez are very sweet.
Okay.
Olorosos are not as sweet, a little bit drier. And then Finos are very, very dry. So it all depends on the type. We also use bourbon casks. In Scotland, not just at Auchentoshan, 75% of Scotland's whiskey spends at least some of its life in a bourbon cask. And it's because, well, they're the easiest casks to get. In the States, they only get to use their casks once. We can use a cask here at Auchentoshan up to 3 times. So we're more than happy to take their casks off them and use them. These very traditional whiskey, caramel, vanilla, honey, very pale in colour, very pale yellow. Now, we also use a lot of red wine casks here at Auchentoshan, okay? One of the reasons for that, Suntory, well, they own a lot of vineyards in Bordeaux, so we can get these casks when their vineyards are done with them. Again, as you can imagine, a very red, very dark whiskey, but rather than being spiced fruits like a sherry, it's more fresh fruits. I get blackcurrant, I get raspberry, I get plum, and you also get those tannins from the wines. You get these very heavy sort of mouthfeel to the whiskey. Now, this is only a very small selection of the casks that we use here, because in all honesty, we use almost every cask you can think of. You know, we use, all you see here, we use mezcal, you know, tequila casks, agave, there's port casks. We use any and all casks you can think of, even white wine and rum casks as well. The idea is if we can squeeze some whiskey into it, we're going to see what we get. We're going to experiment a little bit. Okay. In fact, as well, I can show you these here just so you can understand the process a little bit better. So this is a stave from one of our red wine casks. Okay. Now you can see here where the red wine has got to. We call this our tide line. If you see where that wet line has got to here, but then below it there's this black line, that's where the whiskey's got to. So the whiskey goes through, it gets all of that lovely flavour, it gets all of the sort of saps and tannins from the oak, and then it comes out as a mixture.
好了，我们现在来到我们最后的品饮环节，喝到我们的 Auchentoshan 的这个 Whisky。那今天我们非常非常开心呢，在我的右手边这一款酒是这个20年的波本桶，然后在我的左手边我们喝的是 PX 1988年，因为刚刚贝有跟我讲过说因为他知道我是1988年出生的，所以他特别挑选了1988年的威士忌给我品饮。那来到我们酒厂的时候，除了刚刚我跟他介绍说一些基本酒款我们在台湾可以买得到，我们来到欧肯酒厂，我们一定要喝什么？喝特殊酒款嘛。所以第一杯酒的话就由我们的 Ben 来帮我们介绍。OK, Ben, please.
For the last couple of whiskies that I'm giving you guys to taste today, I thought, well, we might as well give you the special stuff. So this here, the one you're trying is a 19-year-old bourbon style whiskey, first fill bourbon cask exclusively. Now this one is a whiskey you can only find here at the distillery. We do not export this, you will never find it in stores. It is completely unique to us, okay? I think it's quite spicy, white pepper, bit of apple.
Yes.
For me, I think this whiskey, it benefits from maybe 2 or 3 drops of water. Okay, so for me, if you like it, then you don't touch it, you know? But I would say maybe 1, 2, 3. It softens the whiskey quite dramatically.
它那个主调性还是白胡椒，然后苹果味，然后它苹果的味道，然后开始散发出来，非常的清新，而且非常的优雅，不会让我感觉它是属于那种刺鼻的那种单桶感觉，完全感受不到那个酒精的刺激感，所以香气非常非常的棒。来喝一口看看，油脂度 很低很低很低，但是我在嘴巴里面已经感受到那个香草啦，还有奶油啦，甚至我有感受到那种水果蛋糕的气息，还有一点点的一个杏仁感。所以这一款酒，在酒厂，因为酒厂限定版只能在这边喝到而已啦，所以我就分享给大家看，欧肯酒厂的3次蒸馏出来所喝到的威士忌是属于比较轻松，而且在入口里面又显现一点小活泼 ，It's very good 这样。
Quite fierce, quite strong. Very good, I would say, opener. Because the great thing after that, everything else tastes lovely and smooth. Okay. Now this next one here, I'm not going to lie to you, this is my favorite whiskey. Okay, now this is the oldest one that we do here. This is from 1988, this whiskey. 35-year-old Pedro Jimenez finish. Okay, so you're talking 25 years bourbon and about 10 to 9 years in Pedro Jimenez. For me, there's a lot of rose in this one. It's quite a floral whiskey. It's actually very delicate as well, and that's down to the age and also because we're triple distilling. Our whiskies have that more crisp finish to them that you want from a lowland. So for any of you who are not too keen on your peated whiskies or heavy whiskies, Auchentoshan is going to be quite up your street. Very, very light, very floral.
厚重的这个重雪莉感，然后它完全让我感觉到，没有甜的感觉，然后开始偏向于比较肉桂，然后深沉果实的颜色，就是一个很沉稳、很内敛的这种香气，没有马上喷发出来，所以感觉到我好像要急于想要去探索它的那味道。一起来喝一口，我喜欢。在嘴巴里面，它那个油脂里面，在我舌头上面去奔跑、去游走那种感觉。这一款的油脂度非常的完美。再来呢，干嘛？加水，对不对？加了2滴水，看它的香气如何。加了2滴水以后，它的香气开始奔放，没有像刚刚没有加水前的话，它是属于比较闷骚一点。它现在开始加水的时候，开始往上一直奔发，一直把它喷发出来，开始出现核桃、葡萄干的味道。我觉得它那个葡萄干。跟它原本肉桂去交织出来那种香气甜美感开始出现了。原本我在闻的时候不甜，但是开始那个甜美感慢慢的展现出来。喝，坦白讲，我还是喜欢它纯饮的感觉，因为我觉得我喜欢那种比较强烈厚重的感觉。加完水以后，它其实还是保留它的那个扎实感的韵味，但是我还是喜欢强烈的口感，这是我最爱的。但加水的话，各位，我觉得原酒还是要加一点水啦，就是各位观众朋友，你会接受度会比较高一点点，因为它会让你比较好去入口。Cheers.
Which one do you prefer?
I like American bourbon.
You like the bourbon?
I like bourbon.
No, fair enough. I like fruity whiskies. So, but that's the great thing about whiskey. It all depends on what you like. There's never a right or wrong answer to what's the best whiskey. Just the one that you like the best. No such thing as the best one. It's all individual.
OK， 那我们今天的影片就要到此结束了哦。那记得要干嘛？要记得订阅、按赞、开启小铃铛，然后继续观赏我们李奥社长的酒厂系列，可以让你的对于威士忌酒厂的知识一次都能够看足，都能够了解威士忌的风味跟奥妙。咱们的李奥上来宾酒，下礼拜见，拜拜。